Hello Markham Gardens family, Daniel Markham here with Markham Gardens. Hey guys, today is the day. Today we do the update on the Markham Gardens. It's been a while since I walked you guys through the entire garden and showed you everything that's planted, how well it's doing, how much it's grown, and just the differences in each one of the plants. And forgive the traffic guys, you guys know I'm right here on the highway. So anyway, just wanted to give you guys an update. It's been a little over a year since our last update on this garden. Most of this stuff has been planted within the year. There is a couple trees, mimosa trees that were planted here before we actually got here that I'll show you guys. But for the most part, everything here, guys, was beach sand. What you see behind me right here was all beach sand. There was no life here on the property basically, and so I began planting some things, and you guys can see that nature has begun to take over. This is what happens when you add organic material to things, and you can see it starts turning nice and green. So anyway, I wanted to take you guys on this journey. If you'll hang tight with me, I'm just going to go through the whole garden. I'm going to point out the plants. I might talk a little bit about each one, but just wanted to give you guys a view of what we've got growing right now currently in the gardens, and just the condition of growth just in 1 year's time. So if you haven't seen that previous update, if you'll go back, check out that previous update video, and I think you'll be surprised on the difference between a lot of these plants, guys. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So just to get started on this video, I want to show you guys out here where I just was showing you behind me just all of the growth and stuff that happens when you start adding organic material. And guys, I didn't even put any major wood chips down out here. I just dropped the old dead oak on the ground, and all of that bark and pieces of wood scattered everywhere. And now you can see nature is taking over. We've got mushrooms coming up. I mean, there's just all sorts of stuff happening. We've got flowers that have just started growing. This stuff is incredible. This San Verbena, I remember when we lived in Arizona, we used to have to buy these. This was like $15, $20 for a 1-gallon pot of this. And here it just grows wild as can be. But over here on the tree, where the old dead oak tree was, where it stood before, we've got honeysuckle that is absolutely taking over. You can see that honeysuckle is just going nuts out here. And we've even got some blooms going. So, and man, do these smell amazing. I mean, just the smell on these flowers is incredible. But, all right, moving on to the next. So just on the very corner of our property, we have some blackberry canes that have started growing up. And last year we didn't have a whole lot of fruit from them, but this year I think is going to be a little bit different. You guys can see here, let me see if I can get in here without getting stabbed. We are loaded with wild blackberry, and there are canes of this stuff growing all over in the forest. But we went ahead and took a few of those canes, planted them over here in the corner, and there is definitely fruit starting on all of these. So kind of amazing. Looking forward to trying these out. Now these little boogers have been a pain in my rear. I mean, they have been chewing up everything. And I know that plants are a benefit to these guys as well, and I believe these are a type of butterfly. But there are probably 50 different varieties of caterpillar running around right now, and they are just chewing everything to bits. But right over here, I went ahead and we planted, you guys can see there's some more of this San Verbena coming up. I went ahead and planted a chinkapin oak, and if you guys had seen this in the previous one, this thing was probably about 4 inches tall, and it is definitely put on quite a bit of growth this last year. And here's one of the mimosas that stood here. This one came from seed just a year ago. It was probably about 6 inches tall. I'm probably going to say that a lot because a lot of the plants that I put in the ground were about 6 inches when we got started. This one has not yet started to bloom. So this one is not big enough yet that it's going to really bloom. I think it's just going to keep growing this year. But right here at the base of this one as well, I went ahead and I had transplanted from the forest one of these cherry laurels. And I don't know if you've ever done it before, but if you'll take these cherry laurels and, and you brush them up and smell them, it smells like black cherries, guys. It smells so good, which makes sense why they call it cherry laurel. So you guys can see over here on the other side next to the fence, that is a pecan tree. And we planted that pecan tree. I actually thought, I planted 2 of these, and one of them ended up dying. We ended up having so much rain right after I planted them that it ended up drowning the roots on the other one. But this one has made it and has come back this year with a whole bunch of fresh growth. You can see all that light green up there. That is all the fresh growth that's come off of that thing just since we had rain in the last 3-4 days. So kind of amazing how fast it's growing, and looking forward to having those pecans soon, hopefully. So this here, guys, is the first chinkapin oak that I ever planted on the property, and it took off like crazy, growing really, really well. But you guys can see that there is an issue going on with the leaves here. You know, the leaves look kind of funky. A lot of the new growth is just kind of a really funky look to it. And I have found, I came out here and started digging right here in this spot. I found that I have got either voles or moles that are crawling up underneath this tree and are eating the roots on it. And so that's why this tree looks the way it does. I am hoping, I have tried to get rid of the moles and the voles. I'm hoping that this tree will pull through and push on. And just the fact that it's still growing after having its roots chewed off gives me hope. So one of the things that we do have a plethora of on this property, and I did not plant it, is Chinese wisteria, guys. This has been growing up over the top of this mulch pile on its own and is trying to take off across the garden. But these flowers are beautiful. I will go ahead and I will post a picture of these flowers right here. And they were absolutely gorgeous. They smell up the whole garden every year. But Chinese wisteria takes off. It's almost invasive here. You guys can see it growing up that tree right there. They will girdle a tree. They will kill a tree if it's really small. That one's going to do okay, but you can see that once they get started, then they start coming through the fence. Now it's growing up over the top of the wood chip mulch pile. We'll have Chinese wisteria forever. This one I'll probably have to get rid of because right here in this particular area of the garden is where I plan to put a pond. So we'll probably have to get rid of that one, and all of this mulch is going to have to be moved as well. So right over here, this is a water oak, a black oak, and this one came up from seed. So when I brought in all of this mulch, the mulch had a whole bunch of oak in it. And so this one came up on its own. I actually have 3 of these seedlings that have come up on their own, and I've gone ahead and decided to keep them because the leaves are almost evergreen here. And so it's one of the few evergreens that we have that stay, you know, green all year round, and it's beautiful when everything else is dead and died off. But right here next to it, I've got a Chinese chestnut. I would love to have an American chestnut on the property, but the American chestnut has been so riddled with blight that they have difficulty growing and difficulty staying alive. So we went ahead and planted some of this Chinese chestnut. You can see some fresh new growth on it. It's doing absolutely amazing. This is the result of those dadgum caterpillars. So that's what happens with those guys, but this has done some incredible growth. This one has grown a lot. I mean, these were little bare root, probably about 4 to 5 inches tall when I first planted them last year, and so these have put on a lot of growth. And then right here next to it, this is another seedling that grew up. Now, a lot of people will laugh at me that I've allowed this to grow because this here is a tallow tree. And anybody that knows anything about tallow trees, they not only throw up suckers from the roots, but they seed profusely. And so they will grow new trees all over the garden, but they are beautiful. The leaves are gorgeous. I love the shape of them. They're almost like a quaking aspen type of thing. But in the fall is when they really shine. In the fall, they start popping colors of all different kinds. They look like a rainbow tree standing out here. So I have one that I have let grow on this property. I will probably take out every other one of them just because they are so invasive. So right over here in the front of the property, originally there was just this pine tree standing right here. And so what I noticed when I got over here though is that this pine tree had a massive oak trunk that the previous owner had cut down. There was a massive white oak tree here, and it was throwing up hundreds of little suckers off of it. And so I chose the strongest one and decided to go ahead and let it grow. And in 1 year, guys, this is what it's done. This thing is probably, I would say right now, probably 14, maybe 12 to 14 feet high in 1 year. Kind of incredible. And but we're going to go ahead and let a white oak tree grow back up there. And you guys can see Virginia creeper. That's another one. When we were in Arizona, we had to buy Virginia creeper, and it was like $25–30 for one plant. And this stuff just grows wild everywhere and grows up the trees, and I love the look of that. I just love the look of it growing up the trees. Sorry it blacks out just a little bit there. Hopefully, yeah, you can kind of see it, but it is grown all the way up into that tree. But it is just so beautiful the way it grows. And so this is one of the mimosas that was here. It was a seedling, pretty small. And so I believe that this has just now started to bloom this year. And so we'll probably see a couple blooms on this year, but I don't think there's any on it right now. So we're just now going into blooming season on these mimosa. And you guys can see right here, I would take you over there, but I'm right here on the other side of these wood chips. There is a beauty berry that's right here that is growing up out of there. And if you guys haven't ever seen a beauty berry, I will put the picture of what those beauty berries look like right there. But they are absolutely beautiful. I do need to get back here and clean this up a little bit. I've got stuff going crazy, grasses coming up, all sorts of randomness. But we'll clean this area up and get it to just the specimens that we want. But here's another one of those seedling oaks. This is another one of those seedling oaks that came up on its own, growing like crazy. We've got that one. And then we've got the third one, about the ones I was talking about, that is growing right there. And that one's doing really, really well also. So I've got 3 of them. Got a trio of the black water oaks growing right here on the property. And so one of the other wilds that came up is the winged elm. And so this is a wingleaf elm that comes up. These do grow wild here. There's a whole bunch of them out in the forest, but we didn't have any on the property. And so I went ahead and decided to go ahead and let one grow. You guys can see I've got some wild flowers that have just come up growing all over the place in this area as well. But this winged elm came up as a seedling, and I've gone ahead and let it grow. I'm gonna go ahead and grow one on the property just so we have one, just so I can see what they look like and I can enjoy them in all of their splendor. So here's one of my favorites on the property, guys. When we lived in Arizona, you could grow magnolias, but really the only ones that I saw most people growing were the little gem, which are the little tiny dwarf magnolias. And when we moved here to Southeast Texas, we started seeing magnolias that were huge. I mean, they are by far probably the tallest trees in this area. And the leaves are just gorgeous, but a little fuzzy on the underside too, just a little bit. But I did not want to have to buy one, so I went out in the forest and dug one up. And I'll tell you that this tree, not even these top leaves here, I think it had like 3 leaves on it. I think the top of the tree was down here. And now you guys can see that just since spring, it started growing here. And just now it's taken off. So this is 1 year. So it basically took 1 year to get this high off of just a seedling, but I transplanted this from the forest. So you guys can do this if you don't know. If you'll just go out, dig one up, go ahead and keep a good amount of the root system, and it will start growing on its own. In fact, it's even starting to branch off. Got a branch here, and it's got a branch starting here and here. So cannot wait to see this thing bloom. It's going to take a little bit to get bigger, but cannot wait. You guys can definitely tell that I like this sand verbena, and it definitely brings in the butterflies, brings in the bees, those type of things. And so in all of this mulch that I have spread across the entire property, you guys can see I have plenty of room for more planting. But I went ahead and left this massive sand verbena here in the center to just take off and do its thing, just because of how beneficial they are. But one of the other trees that I transplanted from the forest was this pine tree. And I laugh at myself now, but when we first came here, I just was so amazed at all of the pine trees, because we didn't have a lot of them in Arizona where we were at, that I went ahead and went out in the forest and I transplanted one of these. And guys, this is just one of the regular old pine trees that they grow around here. Not even a big deal, but I planted one, and it has been growing for a year now from a little seedling. And I'm almost to the point where I'm thinking about going ahead and pulling it, only because if you look over here, guys, on the outside of the property, see all those sticking up over the top? That's all of the loblolly pine. And so we are covered in loblolly pine around here. In fact, if you look on this side, you'll see all the massive ones. Those are all loblolly pine. And so here I've gone and transplanted one loblolly pine to our property. And granted, we have one here and we have one here. But that's what happens when you're a gardener, guys. When you're a gardener, it doesn't make sense. Sometimes you just find a plant and you go, I need another plant. So you end up planting plants that are pretty profuse around the area. But anyway, so that's what's going on with that loblolly pine. And I don't know, I might remove it, I might keep it, who knows, we'll see what happens. So right over here, I have another one of the chinkapin oaks. And guys, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to establish kind of a shade canopy. I need an over canopy of large trees on this property. You can see that basically it's wide open. Let me just look back on what we've already covered. It's wide open right now. And so I need some shade canopy. All of the understory trees, although the flowering trees and the fruiting trees under the forest do great because of that over canopy that's right there. And so I'm trying to create a little bit of an over canopy on this property by planting trees like this one, like the chinkapin oak. And this is another one that I got from Bare Root. I think it was provided by the National Forest Service. They came and were sitting at Tractor Supply one day and ended up giving me a whole bunch of bare roots. So I planted a whole bunch of these on the property just to get them all going. But that's the story with these. I do have a few spots on the property where I have opened up an area and planted watermelon just to get some watermelon vine going out here. And this one's doing really, really well. They're all definitely growing, but all of this rain that we had over the last week has definitely got them taken off. So here's one of the other Chinese chestnut. This one has not grown quite as much as the other one. This one's a little more bushy, but this one got demolished. I mean, all of the new growth that was coming off got demolished by the caterpillars this year. But it is definitely still coming. You can see the new growth on it doing really well. I cannot wait to roast chestnuts over an open fire, as dumb as that sounds. So when I brought all of this mulch in here, one of the things that I thought was amazing is that a lot of this mulch came from eastern redbuds. And if you've never seen an eastern redbud, I'll put a picture of what one looks like right here. But eastern redbuds are absolutely beautiful when they're blooming. Their leaves are absolutely gorgeous. And so what has started happening is I've had little seedlings of eastern redbud that have started to come up out of the ground. And so I've started marking them to leave them. Any of them that come up naturally on the property, I am going to leave them. And you can see right over here, I've got 2 more of them that are coming up out of the ground naturally. They just doing their own thing. I don't have to plant them. and they are coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and nurse them and get them growing. But along with those three, you can see one that came up a little bit sooner. Here's another seedling that came up. And this one has a beautiful, beautiful red growth on all of the new leaves. And so this one came up a little bit sooner than those other three, and it is doing magnificent. I mean, but they're beautiful trees. And like I said, I'll put that picture up there of the blooming tree if I haven't already, just so you guys can see what they look like. So here's what I was talking about those red buds, and you can see these aren't doing extremely well because they're all sitting in the middle of deep mulch. But I'm going to end up, you guys can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I mean, there's probably 15 red bud right here growing that came up as seedlings. So I'm going to dig every one of these up and pot these up and probably plant them all over the property. I mean, they're just absolutely beautiful. Here's a few more coming up in the middle of the wood chips. And that's the benefit of wood chips, guys. You get a whole bunch of seedling growth that happens. And like I said, they're not doing amazing. Right now they're a little chlorotic. They're not getting enough nutrients because they're just in these wood chips. But I'm going to go ahead and dig them up, and we'll give them a good chance at survival. We've got some more wildflowers coming up. I went ahead and left this one. They're just absolutely beautiful. And you see little butterflies on them. Right there, you see. Little butterflies are constantly landing on them, but these flowers are just beautiful. So I went ahead and left this one in the middle. I don't mind growing a whole bunch of these. These seem to draw in the pollinators big time. And they don't take up a whole lot of space. They stand really tall, but really, really pretty. Right here behind it is one of my mulberries. I went ahead and got these from Miss Doolin, Jan Doolin, and any of you that are interested in mulberries, you've probably heard of her. She's responsible for the Jan's Best mulberry. But I went ahead and ordered some cuttings from her, and I got this one going. She said this one doesn't do extremely well in her area of Florida. This is the Ozturk, or the Australian turkey, or called the Siam Jumbo. And I would say probably the largest mulberry that you can get as far as the berry goes. And this one is doing absolutely amazing. I planted this probably about, gosh, I would say like 4 months ago. And it was down here, guys. It was a tiny little stick that had a couple tiny little growths off of it. And you can see now it has grown up. It's probably standing about 3 feet tall now. Beautiful leaves, but I cannot wait to see the berries on this one. And it's even growing another little branch over here off to the side, but really looking forward to this one. I'm super excited about the Siam Jumbo. So over here I've gone ahead and put in a crepe myrtle. This is just a crepe myrtle that I ended up getting. I believe I got it for free from Arbor Day. And so I went ahead and put that one into the ground. Love crepe myrtles. There will be crepe myrtles all over the property just because of how profuse they bloom, and they bloom almost all season. From spring they take off, and then once it gets hot they just bloom all year long until it gets cold and they drop their leaves. So love these things. So right here is one of our hazelnut trees. When we first moved in, I planted 2 of these hazelnut trees. Looking forward to eating some of the hazelnuts. And these were tiny little bare roots as well. One thing I didn't realize, for some reason, I guess I thought they were going to grow up into single trees, is that now, after planting this original one, I now have that one, I have this one, there's another one coming up over here, and another one coming up over here. So these come up off of sucker roots like crazy. So apparently there's going to be quite a little stand of hazelnuts right here. And let me show you the other one. So this is the one that's doing the best right now. This thing has grown up major time too, but you can see it's got all these little suckers off to the side that have grown. And you guys can see the mushrooms going nuts over here. These things stink so bad, but the fact that there's mushrooms tells me that I have very healthy soil. So that's a good sign, especially when they're growing up around your trees. So, but here's another one of the hazelnut. Right over here next to it, guys, is our muscadine. And I just have 2 little poles right now. Eventually, I plan on putting a muscadine here. There's going to be another muscadine here, another muscadine here, and another one right up there next to the carport, and I will end up building a trellis system across here to support all of these muscadine. But this one here is the Triumph muscadine, and it's doing amazing. Within a year, it's just growing like crazy. It is vining up this pole, but this pole is not going to be enough to hold the weight of all of these berries when it really gets going. So I really need to get this trellis system done and get the other 3 muscadine vines planted in here and let them take off the way they need to. So this here is the Jan's Best mulberry. I've noticed that upon initial planting, it's not the fastest grower. It has definitely been a little bit slower to grow, but this is the Jan's Best. I got this as a cutting and went ahead and rooted this, and it has begun growing. So it's doing well. It's just not as fast of a grower as that Siam Jumbo that's over there. So really looking forward to this one as well, though. I hear this has great flavor. So that brings us to our figs. And when we moved from Arizona, I brought several varieties of fig trees that we had in our yard from over there. Some of them being Black Mission. I think we had Tiger Panache. I had, let me see, there were a few different varieties that we had over there, but they're not cold hardy varieties. And I didn't realize when we moved here how cold it would actually get. And so this is one of the ones, I'm not sure which one this is. To be honest, I didn't label them. I believe this may be the Black Mission, but this thing was probably about 3 times this size last year, hit winter time, and it died back in the winter time. And so this is how much it's grown back. It does seem to grow back every single year. So hopefully year after year, I'll be able to get it a little bit bigger until we finally start getting some fruit from it. But we've got this one here. And guys, forgive all the grass. I mean, it used to be sand in here. This is what happens when you add organic material. Everything just starts growing like crazy. But over here are a couple more fig trees. I believe one of these is a Tiger Panache, and it has died back to the ground during the winter as well. That one did, but it is coming back with a vengeance. And this one over here is coming back as well. But these seem to die back to the ground every winter. They do seem to get a little bit bigger each year. I think we've had these in the ground for 2 winters now. And the first winter died back, and then last year got a little bit bigger, and then died back again. And I'm hoping that this year is going to get even bigger. So one of the trees that I really wanted when I moved in here was a weeping willow, and we could not grow them in the area of Arizona that we were in. And so I wanted to grow one, so I went ahead and ordered a little bare root. And so we planted this bare root about a year ago, and it was tiny. I mean, it was probably up to where that green tape is right there on it. That was probably as tall as the tree was. And I made sure that I planted it plenty distance away from our well and any piping and anything like that, because these guys will seek out water big time. But this is how much it's grown since, guys. This thing is definitely taller than me. It's about I don't know, I'd say 13 feet high now. And doing really, really well. Caterpillars really loved this one as well. I mean, they've been definitely doing some eating on different leaves, but this one grows so fast it just doesn't seem to care. But there are also some pretty good benefits from weeping willow. You can make teas out of them and things like that. So definitely happy to have this one for sure. So I don't know if you guys remember, but earlier in the video, if you don't, I guess you can go back and look, but I told you about another pecan tree that I had planted that died. And so this is the one, guys. Whenever I planted it, I ended up watering it really, really well. And then it decided to rain for probably a good 5 days after I planted it. And so the whole top half, the actual pecan portion, died off. And the other day I came out here and I noticed this coming up from the base, and I thought, oh my goodness, how cool, I'm gonna have more pecan. But crazy enough, and I don't understand it, because if you graft pecan onto a pecan rootstock, it will do really, really well. If you graft a pecan tree onto a hickory rootstock, the pecan will always grow faster than the hickory, so you end up with all this weight sitting on top of a smaller trunk. Well, come to find out, that is hickory. So they grafted those pecans onto a hickory tree for some reason. And so now I've got a hickory tree growing up, so it's cool that I'm gonna have a hickory tree here. I'm gonna have a lot of shade in this area. It's definitely needed, but right next to it, I have this massive hickory tree. So I already have a hickory tree here, so we're definitely gonna have another hickory, and this one's huge, guys. I mean, this thing is way up there. But over here on the other part of the property, that trunk right there is another hickory tree, massive hickory tree. So I'm gonna now have 1, 2, 3 hickory trees. So I can always graft a pecan onto this later on if I want to. But for now, we're going to go ahead and let it get established as a hickory tree. It seems to be doing well, and so I'm going to let it go ahead and get it start in that manner. So one of the things that's so cool about this area is all of the stuff that comes up wild. And guys, forgive the mess, but underneath our carport, you guys can see I'm underneath shade now. This is one of those wisteria vines, and it has just decided to come up underneath the carport. And so I think it's so cool how many of these we get. I'll probably dig this up and transplant it to an area out by itself and train it into a tree, wisteria, but we'll see. And then from seedling here, this right here is a bower vine. And this has come up wild, and it had a few flowers on it this last year, and definitely looking forward to the flowers on this one this year. It is looking really, really pretty here on the side of our carport. I'll go ahead and let it grow. It came up wild. It seems to be happy in its spot, so I'm going to let it grow. But down here on the ground, you guys can see this is our pomegranate tree. And I knew it got kind of cold here, so I knew like the regular pomegranates would not necessarily do well. So I ended up getting a Russian pomegranate. This thing was as tall as me. It was probably 6 to 8 feet tall the first year. And this thing died all the way down to about 4 inches tall over the winter time that we had. It got down to, I think we hit maybe 12 degrees. And so, you know, for being zone 9A, kind of crazy that it would get down that cold, but it did, and so it knocked this thing all the way to the ground. I thought I lost it, and it has started coming back really well. It's really pretty. I'm hoping that it'll do better as an entire thank you, Leo, as an entire bush, and we'll see how that does. But right over here off to the side of that is another crepe myrtle. And so I went ahead and planted this into the ground. Guys, this, if you don't remember, I did a video previously on rooting crepe myrtle bare roots. And so this is one of the crepe myrtles. You can see it started getting a little bit chlorotic sitting in the pot that it was in. So I went ahead and planted it. And since planting it, you know, into our really fertile soil, it has definitely turned green and has a lot of new growth on it. But this is one of our crepe myrtles, guys, that I planted from that video. And told you I'd give you an update. Well, here is your update, guys. It's doing really, really well. I've got several of these planted on the property. But yeah, they definitely took no issues there. And here in a little bit, I'll show you some more that we ended up planting. So right here is our elderberry. I planted 2 of these elderberries. I planted one here, and then I planted one on the other side of the walkway right over here. This one did not make it. Interesting enough, everything that I plant in this hole right here seems to die, and I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm gonna get something to grow. It's not that this area can't grow things, because we've got a mimosa right here doing perfectly fine. We've got other things that grow up, like weeds and things, so I will get something growing here eventually. But I had an elderberry there, and I had one right here, and this one is doing really, really well. This year, it's finally taken off. I think last year, it was probably establishing its root system, because it was taking a while. But I know that the root system is doing well, because it has decided to grace me with an extra elderberry plant right here. And so I'm going to take this one and end up planting it right over there where it was supposed to be to begin with. But this is what happens with elderberries, guys. They will throw new shoots off of the root systems. And so I'm going to end up digging this thing up and planting it over there. It gave me a free elderberry. One died, it's decided to provide me with another. And sorry about the roosters, guys. I have 3 of them, and they are not going to shut up as long as I'm talking. To them, I must be crowing right now, and so they are going to answer me. But here's our rosemary. We planted this one, went down to the nursery, smelled a whole bunch of them. If you're not familiar, rosemary, each plant has a little bit different scent, a little bit different flavor. I love the smell of rosemary. And so we took the one that smelled the best, that tasted the best, and took that thing home. It was probably about 4 to 5 inches tall, and it has taken off. It's doing really, really well. Lots and lots of growth. We love to cook with this. We love to fragrance. You can put a couple of these sprigs next to your air conditioner in your vehicle, and man, does it smell amazing. So to go along with the natural seedlings that grow up on property, guys, this is my pawpaw tree. And when we first moved in, I was like, man, I'd love to have a pawpaw tree. And then come to find out, we ended up having several seedlings that popped up in this area. So this is our pawpaw tree, and it is growing out here in full sun. I've heard that if they start in full sun from the times they're seedlings, they can grow in full sun all the way to adulthood. But if you start them in shade, then they don't do real well in the full sun. So this one is definitely out in the full sun all the way to the evening, and it is doing absolutely amazing. So I'm not worried about it, but super excited about getting pawpaws. So there was a short video that I posted. I believe it was probably a short. Yeah, just a short, like when I say short video, it was actually a video called a short on this mulberry tree. And I told you I'd come back and do an update on it, guys. This thing has taken off. So the story behind this is this mulberry tree originally came from Phoenix, Arizona. And I remember when I lived in the apartments there years ago, there was this mulberry tree, had white fruit on it that tasted incredible, tastes like honey. And so I wanted to grow it. So I ended up rooting a cutting of this tree. I grew out that cutting, it started producing. I planted it there in our yard, in our house that we purchased after I was in the apartment and I got married. And so it took off there at the house, started fruiting like crazy, delicious fruit. We loved it. And so then when we decided to move to Texas, I thought, I've got to take this tree with us. So I took another cutting and brought it here and rooted it. And you guys can see it is taking off. And this is 1 year of growth, guys. 1 year of growth, that thing is taking off. If you're not planting mulberry, guys, get with it. Because mulberry is definitely the king of fruit trees. Creates the most fruit each year. And grows super easy, don't take a lot. They're incredible trees, but this is just part of the wild that grows up around us, guys. Giant ragweed. It's right next to the chicken coop, so definitely a lot of fertilizer available. So we get giant ragweed, and you can see some of the wild mimosa coming up there in the back as well. So here's a few more of our crepe myrtle seedlings, or not seedlings, but bare roots that they sent that I did the video on a while back. You guys can see this one here is doing really well. We've got another one over here that's a little bit slower. This one's growing at a lot slower growth rate. We've got another one right here that has just absolutely exploded, that is doing amazing. And then the biggest one of all of them, I don't know what variety this is, but this thing has just taken off. And it's just really putting on a lot of growth. But over here you guys can see I got a lot more of this San Verbena. And you can see, I mean, there's just butterflies flying all around it. It's so beautiful. Definitely has a great fragrance to it. So I have let this grow up over this whole area. But absolutely love the San Verbena. But you guys can see here some of these tall stalks of these. I mean, they're just beautiful flowers. Just the way that they grow. So I let a whole bunch of those grow just because we love having the butterflies and the bees around. So right here is our Texas jasmine. Texas Jasmine. This is a Texas sage, guys. A lot of times these people call these the rain gauge. These things will turn purple, pink flowers all over them whenever it rains. And I almost, last year when we had the major drought, I actually thought I might lose this plant. And it has just, this year, just taken off, started growing like crazy. We had a couple of these in Phoenix, Arizona, so I know they can take the heat. But this one is doing really well. This has been a year in the ground, so definitely not a fast grower. It's not growing as fast as it should, but it looks like it's taking off this year. So one of the things that we did plant several of over this last season is butterfly bush, Buddleia davidi. And we love these things. I mean, they are absolutely, the butterflies love them, the bees love them. They have an amazing fragrance. But I've planted several varieties of these. This is right out here at our entrance. But love these bushes. If you've not planted one, go ahead and plant one. I will put a picture right up here of what one looks like in full absolute bloom when it's full grown. They're just very striking. So right here is one of our entryway red maples that I went ahead and planted. We've got one there. This one's growing a little bit slow, probably because it has the massive hickory right here with a whole bunch of shade that it's producing. Oh, I love these trees. But yeah, the red maple be really pretty growing here next to the mailbox. So one of the things that I did do this last year is I started creating different beds for flowers, different beds for plants. You know, it's called Markham Gardens basically because, not because there's multiple locations where we're at, but because the way and my method of gardening is I do multiple gardens. So basically this is a garden, this is its own garden, there's another one back here, there's another one there, there's another one there, there's another one there, and I separate them. So I do multiple gardens and I design each one individually is basically why we call it that. But I started using a whole bunch of these logs. We had a whole bunch of arborists that were dropping wood chips off, as you guys know, and they drop off logs as well. So to utilize those logs, I started making raised beds out of them. What better thing to use than a log if it's going to break down, turn back into soil as well. But here's one of our crepe myrtle seedlings that has been planted in this area. This one is competing for sure with the oak tree. And then right here on the other side is another crepe myrtle that I've grown. And this is one of the seedlings as well that I showed you guys in that video that is doing really, really well. And then in this garden section, let me just show you guys, that is the other red maple. So you can see the difference in that other one plus this one that doesn't have any competition. There's nothing shading it. It definitely has a lot of room to grow. And so it is probably sitting at about 5.5 foot tall right now. This is one of the interesting ones, guys. This right here is a quaking aspen. And I can tell you the only place I've ever seen these things grow is in Colorado or New Mexico or Oregon or way up high, guys, way up high in the mountains. And so these things will grow up where a lot of other trees can't grow and the amount of oxygen that's up there. But this is my wife's favorite tree. This is Tammy's favorite tree. And so she was like, you think we could grow one? So I ordered one, planted it, and oh my goodness, because this thing, like I've said with the other ones, was probably 6 to 8 inches tall as a bare root. Planted it and it has taken off. And I will tell you, from about right here was last year, all of this is just this year since waking up. And so it is doing really well. Quaking aspen in the name is populous, and so the reason why is it will grow off a whole bunch of new seedlings. It will grow off a whole bunch of new trees, and that's exactly what it's doing. So here's another new tree that's popped off. Another new tree. There's several of them growing up around this tree. So look like we should have a little area of quaking aspen doing really well, but it took it through the summer and it definitely did well through the winter. So looking forward to that one for sure. Right over here, I went ahead and had a friend from Phoenix, Arizona. If you haven't seen his YouTube channel, it's Man with a Mission, and he's growing a garden very similar to this, is really heavy use in mulch, and his garden has definitely taken off, done really well. I'll try to put a link in the in the description to his channel as well. But he went ahead and sent me some of these castor beans. I grew a whole bunch of castor beans in Phoenix. When we left our gardens that we had in Phoenix, I gave him all of the mulch as I was cleaning up the property, and it had a bunch of these castor beans in it. Well, then he sent me some castor beans off of the trees that he grew that came from the seeds that I had originally given him. And so I've got castors growing all over the property now. Looking forward to those growing up. But right here behind me, you can see this is our magnolia. So this is a Sweet Anne magnolia. I'm sorry, Jane magnolia. It has pink flowers. I'll go ahead and put a picture right here of what that tree looks like in full bloom. And this thing is doing amazing. It was probably about a quarter of this size a year ago, and it has absolutely taken off this year. This is a sweet shrub. I've got 3 of these. I will post a picture right here of what a sweet shrub looks like. The major benefit to these is the flowers are just so fragrant. They're incredibly fragrant. And I've got one there. I've planted one here. And then on the other side of the magnolia, I've got another one planted right there. And totally looking forward to being able to smell these things every year. But one of the natives that we've planted here on the property is the Turk's Cap hibiscus. And if you live in Texas, you guys know Turk's Cap hibiscus does amazing. Some of the other tropical hibiscus in this area don't do real well just because, like, they are tropical and we get pretty cold. But the Turk's Cap does really, really well and has taken off. This thing was really tiny at the beginning of this season, not even the year, and this is all in one season that it's done this. This right here is a Rose of Sharon, Althea, and these do really well. I've got, I believe, 3 of these planted on the property. This one here is going to be a purple variety, and it is growing big time. I've just planted that this season, planted this at the beginning of spring, and it has taken off. And we've got another one of those butterfly bushes right here. This one was a lot tinier when I planted it. And the butterfly bush is doing really, really well. Let's see, let's go over here. Let's go over here to this other garden area. And right here we've got some Ruellia called Mexican Petunia. Down here is the button bush. If you've never seen a button bush, I will put a picture of that right here. Button bush is growing. I went ahead and planted that this spring. This whole garden here was laid out this spring. We went ahead and put some double knockout roses right here. There is another one of those seedling crepe myrtles growing here. Forgive the traffic sound, guys. We've got one of the common myrtles growing right here, have beautiful flowers when they do bloom. And then another one of the seedling crepe myrtles growing up right here in this bed. And you guys can see here the stink caps. They reek. I mean, they just smell so bad, these mushrooms. But we've got mushrooms of all types growing all over the property. And man, those stink caps stink. They really do. So right up against the house here, we've got spider lilies, and sand spider lilies is what they call them, sand lilies. We've got some growing there, and there's some over here growing up against the house as well. And those were here, actually. The previous owner had those in the ground, and I don't think he really took care of them. But since coming into the house, we've been watering them and keep them going a lot better. And if it wasn't for the grasshoppers who love them and tear the leaves up quite a bit, they would look beautiful all year. But this right here is an African iris. This one actually died back in the winter, and this is how much has come back so far this spring. And it will definitely probably start blooming here pretty soon. But it is definitely coming back, and that's a beautiful, beautiful iris flower. You can see I've got some more of the castors. This one here is a red castor, and this one will be beautiful when it grows up right here in this area. We've got the double knockout mini rose, And just love the double knockouts just because they almost glow. You can see they almost wash out in the camera. But this is a mini rose that we planted here. I actually meant to get a full-size double knockout rose, and the store actually sold me a mini, and I guess they didn't know that they had minis, so that's what ended up happening there. But this bed over here has been a little bit challenging. This one, because it's behind the house area over here, doesn't get a whole lot of sun. And so I've had to slowly figure out what will grow over here, how much sun we'll actually get, things like that. And you can see here, this is finally coming back. This is a Pride of Barbados. And we used to grow these in Arizona as well. Have beautiful flowers on them. I'll put a picture of that right up here. And so this is coming back this year. It's doing really well and growing pretty fast since it's woke up. We've got another one of the butterfly bush here. We've got a flax plant right here. Love the variegation on these. This thing died all the way back in the wintertime, and now it's coming back for spring. Absolutely beautiful in the summertime when it gets full and just starts filling this entire area. Right here we've got a white sage. I received this from a neighbor down the street, and this stuff smells incredible. This is the kind of sage that you put together in a bundle and light it as a smudge, and it smells so good. Definitely propagates profusely. I mean, they start coming up all over the place. You can see there's another one that's come up over there, several feet from the original. But this is a beautiful plant. Seems to do really well here. Right here in the front of the house, you can see we've got some more of the spider sand lilies. In fact, right here is more of that white sage. So from here, sent a runner all the way over here and has come up. So that's how profuse they are in their propagation. But here's another one of the sand lilies. Here on the front patio with our little gnome collection, you can see we've got some tomatoes. I've put a tomato vine here. We've got a pepper plant here. I believe that's a cayenne pepper. We got another tomato plant growing up in a pot here. And these right here are the belladonna lilies. And so if you've never seen a belladonna lily, your picture is going to be right here. But absolutely fragrant, beautiful, beautiful lilies. So right here next to our front entrance, I just received, our electric company does a program where they give away free trees through Arbor Day. And so we got several trees this year, and one of them was a Natchez crepe myrtle. And so we've gone ahead and planted that here at our front entrance. And it will tower up over this area, but right here next to the entrance should be beautiful, kind of fence this little area in and make it a green, heavy vegetation space to get into the house. Right over here we've got another one of these butterfly bush, and this one is just going crazy. You guys can see the bloom here. I mean, they are just absolutely beautiful flowers. Love them. Love them. They smell incredible too. But right over here around our tree, I do not remember what these flowers are called, guys, but I remember standing here in the yard and I looked up across the street, and right over here in this bar ditch were these beautiful bright pink flowers growing up. And I thought, what are those? So I went over there, grabbed several of them, transplanted them over here to the yard on our side, and this is what they've done this year. And you can see that there are a few of the older ones that have already spent, but these are them coming up in this area. And so don't be afraid to transplant, guys. I mean, it's an easy way to get free flowers. You can move them into wherever you want them, and that's what I've done here. Right next to this is a lantana. Also in Arizona, we had the purple trailing lantana, and I'll put a picture on the screen of that as well, but I've gone ahead and planted that here in this tree well. And because we love the lantana, love the smell of them. They bring in the butterflies and the bees as well. So right here at our front entryway, I went ahead and planted a couple of peppers. So I've got peppers in pots right here. You can see we've got some little cayenne peppers already growing up on our pepper plants. We've got a clematis vine. It has already bloomed and is starting to create its seed pod. And so kind of cool the way those look. This one here is called the Markham clematis, believe it or not. So I thought, what better place to plant it than at Markham Gardens? But my wife's favorite vining flower, and this is the sweet pink jasmine. And so this thing actually for winter died all the way back to the ground. We thought we had completely lost it, and it has come back and is now growing up this pole, and cannot wait to see that thing in full bloom again. They're so fragrant, guys. If you've not smelled them, get one, smell it. Even if it doesn't grow in your area, buy one just so you can smell it for 1 year, because they are incredible. But absolutely beautiful. I'll put a picture on the screen of what those look like when they're in full bloom. But a bunch of wild stuff down here, guys. We've got a whole bunch of different wild flowers that grow down here. These are all violets, and those just come up wild in this area. But kind of filling in this little garden bed here. And then right over here we've got a Carolina jasmine. That is jasmine, jessamine. A lot of people call it different things, but growing up this area, and all of the new growth popping off the top of it this year. And I'm probably going to end up putting a trellis to cover this front entryway here, just so that it has something to grow on, because this thing is taking off. It's going to fill this entire area. But over here we've got some more of the belladonna lilies. We've got belladonna lily here. We've got some striped Barbados lilies right here, right here, right here. And I believe there's one, yep, right over there. There's another striped Barbados lily that's growing. We've got another Turk's cap that I planted. It is coming back. This one I thought I lost, and this one, the Turk's cap, is coming back. And you guys have, if you've seen that short video that I made, Turk's cap is coming back. That is definitely the one that I was talking about. I thought I lost that one, but thank goodness it is coming back and looks like it's going to survive. We've also got morning glory that takes off wild here. You can see we've got one of the morning glory flowers growing there, and these vines just grow wild all over the place, so you kind of have to control them and send them where you want them. But then we've got a flower bed here. I've gone ahead and planted a whole bunch of flower seeds in this area. This one has not done as well just because it is so shaded out, but we do have a few things like winged elm I've got to get rid of. We've got another mimosa growing up here. I will probably let this one grow just because Tammy loves the mimosas, Tammy being my wife. And I'll probably let that one grow there. But and then off to the side here, we've got another one of the Althea. This one here is a pink variety of Althea that I've got growing on the edge. And you can also see some of the fleabane daisies growing up in this area, and we go ahead and let those grow. They're so pretty, just tiny little daisies. Yeah, there they are. Beautiful little flowers, and you can see the pollinators love them. And got us a little bumblebee going nuts over here. So and then off to the side of that, we've got some of these wedding wreath vines, or wedding wreath bush, I'm sorry. And these things grow wild here. I actually dug a couple of these things up. I've seen a whole bunch of people that have them around their house. I'll put a picture up here of what they look like. But I've gone ahead and dug up a couple of those from the wild. One there, and then one here that I've planted just because they're so pretty when they bush out. And then right in between them, I've got another butterfly bush. And this one's a little bit more of a lilac color, and it's just getting started. You can see all of these flower buds that are getting started on it, but that's what this one looks like, is this sort of a little purple color. But another butterfly bush going here. So on this side of the walkway, we've actually got right here is a red dogwood tree. And a lot of the dogwoods from this area have already died out. You really can't find a lot of them in the wild, even though this is an area that grows them. wild, and there's a lot of speculation on why they're not growing here anymore, and I really won't get into that. A lot of it's basically ideas that somebody is spraying something into the forest to kill all of them, but I don't necessarily know if I join that bandwagon, but there is definitely something strange that all the dogwoods have died in this area. So I've gone ahead and planted several dogwoods on this property, and I'll show them to you here in just a second. But this one's a red dogwood. Right here we've got a little bit of a flower bed planted. We wanted to get a whole bunch of flowers going in this area, so we went ahead and did that. Here's another dogwood. Now, I had a video that I showed you guys when I planted these. And so these are the Cornus Cusa. These guys actually produce fruit that is edible, absolutely delicious. Tastes like a cross between like an apricot and I guess an apricot and a mango maybe, something like that. But this is one of the Cornus Cusas. It finally did wake up, guys. It is doing amazing, getting a lot of growth on it. Has definitely grown a lot since we planted it. But we've got one here, and then in that same video, I planted this one. And so that one's doing really well also. And then we've got a hydrangea. This is a PG hydrangea, and I've showed this one previously, and it has put on a lot of growth, has about doubled in size, tripled in size. Here's another red bud. You guys can see all the stuff I trimmed off of it trying to get it to go upward. But here's another red bud that I transplanted. When we first moved in, I transplanted one from the forest, and come to find out it ended up being 3 trees in one little bunch. So I went ahead and transplanted this one here. Love these. You can see this one is not quite as red as that other one that was out there, and that's one thing that interests me is once I got to looking them up and I realized all the different colors of the red bud, and I'd really like to get my hands on one of those flamethrower red buds. If you've never seen one of the flamethrower, I'll put a picture right here of what it looks like. Absolutely incredible. Got to get me one of those one of these days. But we've got another whole bunch of wildflowers that we've got growing up all along here on this path. Here is another Cornus Cusa. So this one was the first one that we planted on the property, and this was planted probably about 6 to 8 months before these other two. And I've noticed though that this one has a lot smaller leaves, a lot tinier leaves than the other two, and I'm not really sure why. But it is doing well. It's growing really well. The trunk is definitely a lot bigger than the other two. But this is another Cornus Cusa. You can see here, yeah, Cornus Cusa, Cornero Chino. And basically it's a Chinese dogwood. And then we've got a quince. And it's already done its blooming for the season. I would love to show you guys that, but I'll put a picture right up here of what the blooms looked like on this quince tree. And then right over here on the other side, we've got another dogwood, but this is the Cornus Florida. So this is the Floridian variety of dogwood. And these do not do quite as well here. These definitely struggle in the heat. They definitely struggle with our climate a little bit more. I would say they probably do a lot better in Florida and areas like that. But it is growing, but you can see year after year, I end up with branches that just don't make it. So you have a few branches that don't make it, and then the rest does work. And I don't know, if it survives, it survives. If it doesn't keep, staying alive here, I may go ahead and replace it with the Cornus Cusa. But so far, so good. It's still growing, still alive, and we'll go ahead and let it do its thing. But more wildflowers that we've planted in this area, and that brings us to our Japanese maples. And I have 3 of them in the ground now. This one is the most beautiful. It's like a bright red when it finally blooms out. But Japanese maple there. We've got another Japanese maple over here, and this one has the least amount of red on it. It's more of a rust around the edges. And then we've got another one that we've planted over here. Let me try not to make you dizzy. Let me get on the other side of our wildflower bed here and take you over here to this other Japanese maple, which is like a deep maroon color. And they are doing really, really well. There's definitely some pests that try to chew on them a little bit, but they're doing really well. These guys were all seedlings when I got them, and bare root, and they're doing really well. I love the Japanese maples. Love the way they look when they're full grown, for sure. But we've got another, that's a pink dogwood over there in the corner. And funny enough, right here at the base of the fence is another pawpaw tree. So we've got another one of those growing next to the fence. And then right here on the ground, I actually found this is an azalea, guys, an Indian azalea. And I ended up finding one. I had a client that I was doing some cutting on their azaleas, and I found a branch that had dropped on the ground and had been covered by dirt and had rooted. So I went ahead and asked them, and they allowed me to take that cutting. And so I've planted that here, and it has definitely started growing. So really excited about that. They are absolutely beautiful bushes whenever they're fully grown. So I did do a YouTube short about our tomatoes, and you guys can see, if you watched that short, you can see how much growth has been put on them so far. But we ended up deciding to do a trellis system this year and see if we can grow these tomatoes up kind of like grapevines. Since last year, they were all over the ground, and we lost several of them to bugs and critters and things like that. So, but they are doing really, really well, growing up this trellis as a vine. And so we've got one there, we've got another one there, we've got one at each one of these poles. And if you saw when I planted them, they have definitely put on a lot of growth and are doing really well. Another crepe myrtle that we've got. This is another one of those seedlings from that video. We've got a forsythia. I'll put a picture of what a forsythia looks like up here. And that one is growing. Definitely, again, a lot of growth to that one as well. Here is another one of our Altheas, or Rose of Sharon, and that is another purple variety like the first one that I showed you guys. And that one's taking off right here underneath our red and our white oak tree canopy that you see. We've got two of them there, and then we've got another red and white right here next to each other. And so this whole area is kind of a canopy area, which is why the Japanese maples right there, and there are going to do really well in this area, as well as the dogwoods. But kind of cool, and definitely plan to put in more Japanese maples in this area, kind of fill out this area with some flowering bushes and things like that. So, and then right here at my feet, this is a cherry bush. So I believe it's called a Nantes or Nantes. I'll write it on the screen what exactly that one's called. But it is a cherry bush that grows here. Doesn't require as many chill hours, so we will end up getting fruit off of this probably this next season. So decided to grow a few squash this year, and so here's our squash bed, and we've got several little seedlings that have started coming up, are going to start producing. Looking forward to these. I can see that we've got some flower buds starting on them, but looking forward to our squash. To be honest with you, I'm not sure what kind of squash it is. All I know is we got one from the store. It's either a spaghetti or a butternut or something, and I kept all the seeds and planted all of those in this area this year, and they all came up and are starting to grow. So we'll see, and I'll give you an update on what we've got coming out of those. Right here next to our squash beds, we've got a watermelon crepe myrtle. So this is a watermelon, definitely bright flowers. I'll put a picture on the screen of what those flowers look like. And then we've got a magenta crepe myrtle right next to it, and these basically line our garden area that we've got right here. And then right behind them, I've got a Another one of those crepe myrtles that I showed in the video that definitely came and did really, really well. Guys, if you haven't seen that video, watch the video, guys. It's definitely successful in rooting those bare roots. It definitely works. You guys can see I've shown you multiple crepe myrtles that I grew in that method. And here's another one of them. And then right here on the other side is another one of them that's growing right here, doing really, really well. But right here in the dead center, we've got a vitex, so a chaste tree. Interesting story on these. I don't know if you guys knew, but the reason they call it a chaste tree, they also call it a monk fruit, or a monk tree, is because the seeds that are on them actually prevent a male, it basically squashes their sex hormone. And so they would eat these, and then it would prevent them from wanting to fulfill their physical desires. So that's why they call it a chaste tree, or a monk pepper tree. So, but beautiful flowers on these. I've got one more of these in the garden that I'll show you as well. Here's another one of the fig bushes that we brought from Phoenix, and this one died back too and is coming back this year, so kind of cool. We've got some more of the Ruellia, so along the back entryway here I went ahead and planted. There's a white Ruellia, Mexican petunia, there's another white one, and then we have a purple one, and then a white one, and a white one. And here I'll show you guys real quick what those look like. We've actually got our first bloom on this one, and beautiful, beautiful flowers on these. Grow really, really well, take a lot of drought, easy to grow, hard to get rid of. So just keep that in mind if you do plant them. They are definitely quite vigorous once they get started. And then, so right back here, let me show you guys. So this is our, if you've made it this far, congratulations. We are now in the orchard, guys. This is the last stretch of this video. And I don't know how many of you watched the previous video on this orchard and what it looked like, but it definitely didn't look anything like this. We've got a lot of growth on these trees, and the orchard is now taller than I am. A lot of these trees are just huge. But let me start walking through these real quick just to show you guys. Guys, this is the Santa Rosa plum, and lots and lots of growth on it. It's definitely got a really nice structure to it. This next season, I'll keep trimming them up each dormant season to make sure that our structure stays nice. We did get a couple flowers on this year. It did try to produce one fruit, and I went ahead and pulled that fruit. I usually don't let things produce for at least the first 2 years. Go ahead and let them get root structure and establish their root growth. So this is our Fuyu persimmon. This is my wife's favorite persimmon. She likes the ones that you don't have to wait until they get fully ripe and squishy to eat them. This one is actually sweet and not astringent whenever it is still hard. And so planted this Fuyu persimmon. It's doing really well. Right next to it, we've got another plum tree. This one here is the Methley plum. This one has a really wide structure. Let me see if I can step back. It's definitely growing upward, but it's got a lot wider structure to it as far as a plum tree goes. But doing really well. This one had a few flowers on it this year too. Excuse me. Now, as far as the plum trees go, this one here is a Chickasaw plum. So this one grows wild here. I actually went out and was taking a walk in the forest and found a stand of Chickasaw plums. They call them sand plum, Chickasaw plum, wild plum, and went ahead and found this one and planted it here. And so now this is our third plum tree, and looking forward to getting fruit off of this. I've heard that they can be pretty sweet if you let them get fully ripe, but they're not real big fruit. Just wanted to grow it just for fun. It's one of the natives here, so I thought, why not plant it over here next to our other plum trees. Right here we've got our other vitex, our other monk pepper, and it is starting to bloom. So we've got spires all over it. They've yet to open. but it is definitely about to start producing. Like I said, I'll put some pictures of the flowers on what those look like on the screen. Can't wait for that to get growing. And then right over here, we've got our first peach tree that we planted. This one here is the Florida King peach tree. And one of the most important things, guys, is making sure that you plant peach trees with the correct chill hours. I see so many people that go down to Home Depot, Lowe's, the box stores, Walmart, whatever it is, and they buy a peach tree and they get all excited. They get home and they plant it, and then they never get fruit, or the thing never wakes up whenever spring hits. And the reason why is because of chill hours. You need to figure out how many chill hours, which is basically a number of hours that are below 45 degrees Fahrenheit that you get in the wintertime. And peach trees, plum trees, all of your stone fruit trees basically grow and wake up according to how many chill hours that they require per, each individual type of tree. So the Florida King, actually, I believe, is around 500 to 600 chill hours is what it requires. When it receives that 500 to 600 chill hours, it basically keys the tree in to know, okay, it's time to wake up now, so that when it gets warm, it wakes up, it begins to bloom. If you get one that requires too little chill hours, so say I got one that required only 100 chill hours, and we get 600, to 700 chill hours in this area, I'm basically, that tree's going to wake up too early. It's going to start flowering, and then we're going to end up having the rest of our frosts, and it'll kill off all those flowers, so you won't get any fruit. Now, if you get a tree that requires 1,000 chill hours or 1,200 chill hours, and your area only gets 600 to 700 chill hours, there's a chance that tree will never even know when to wake up, and it'll never wake up in the spring. And on top of that, because it doesn't know when to wake up, it's not going to start blooming. So you'll have this tree that may grow, but you'll never get fruit off of it. So super important, guys, when you plant peach trees and stone fruit trees, when you plant apple trees, pear trees, most of your fruit trees, they require a certain amount of chill hours. And so make sure you look into that before you plant your fruit trees. It's super important, guys. But Florida King, right on cue with how many chill hours we have in this area. Let me get over here and I will show you the rest of them. So this right here is an apricot. This particular apricot is it's the early golden apricot. So this one, I actually thought I was going to lose it this last year, but apparently it was just establishing its root structure. But it has come back and is doing its growing thing, and hopefully this next season we'll see it start to produce a little more flowers and at least show me that it's reaching its maturity. Right here we've got a hachia persimmon. This is the one that you need to wait until it's fully ripe, otherwise it tastes super astringent. This is my favorite, the hachia. I love these type of persimmons. I love them all mushy and sweet and everything else, but that one's planted for me. The other one was for Tammy. So right here we've got another apricot. This particular apricot is the fastest grower that I've got. Let me see if I can find its tag to let you know what it was. The Blenheim. So this is the Blenheim apricot. Guys, you can see there, if you haven't used them, these things are amazing. These metal tags, they can get wet. They're not going to rot like wooden ones. I just do the metal tags and then indent them with a ballpoint pen, and they will remain. But if you've never used those kind of tags, they work great. But this is the Blenheim apricot, doing really, really well. I had to do some restructuring this last season. It was growing one whip all the way up and just kind of weird. So I've done a little bit of restructuring on this one. Right over here, we've got another peach tree. This one here is the Redskin peach, also in our window of chill hours. And this one here has grown a lot, guys. It's incredible how fast peach trees grow. A lot of people have said that there's a lot of issues with peach trees around here. So far, I have not had many issues. And looks like we do still have a Redskin peach attached to this one. And I went ahead and left one to grow on this tree. Let me see if I can get in here so you can see it. There it is right there. So we've got one red skin peach that's still hanging onto this tree, and looking forward to get fruit off of that one as well. Right over here, this tree, I've almost lost it. It ended up having quite an attack of blight. It had rust. It had some rust growing on the leaves, that red rust blight. And this is the cinnamon spice apple. And so it has come back, though. I thought I had completely lost it. It took forever to wake up, but it has woke up. You can see I've got several of these branches that just still haven't done anything. I may still lose this tree. I don't know. I hope not. But it has also started growing from the base. That is still above the graft, though. I know that is a cinnamon spice that's growing off the bottom there. So if the top half doesn't work, I can always start it from the bottom. But we'll see. We're going to watch this one really careful and see how this one does. You don't always have success on every fruit tree, but really looking forward to the cinnamon spice apple. And we'll see how this one does. As far as apples go, here's the other one that we've got. This one here is the Einsheimer apple. This is the one from Israel. And this one does a lot better. This one doesn't seem to be suffering from the rust blight quite as bad, and is definitely growing a lot faster than the other apple for sure. And then right next to it, we've got some pears. These are all of the Asian variety of pears. This one here is a Warren pear. And I've had to do some restructuring on this one. It's kind of a wine glass shape to it. It was growing straight up. A little more like this other one. So this other one is fighting me like crazy. Just wants to grow in this giant tower. And I will get it to grow and spread out a little bit more. But this one here is the Monterey pear. And it's doing it really, really well. But it definitely has an upright growth habit. It just wants to climb for the sky. So, and I really don't want that fruit so high up there that I can't get to it. Right here we've got a southern crab apple. I just put this in for pollination reasons. You can use crab apples. Crab apples are delicious too. You can make things out of them. I wouldn't necessarily eat them straight just because they're so sour. But for just blooms too, bringing in the pollinators and just for pollination of these other apple trees, went ahead and planted that. And that one's growing really vigorous. So over here we've got our loquat trees, and these are seedling loquats. So they're not a variety that are going to be known, but if any of you have ever had loquats before, you know that basically any seedling is going to taste good. I've never had a loquat that I didn't like. In Arizona, we definitely had some varieties. We had, I believe, a Christmas. We had Oscar. I think it was called an Oscar. But there were several different varieties that we had, and we loved them. But I've never even had a seedling that didn't taste good. So this is a seedling loquat that we found here in the area, doing really well. Definitely has a lot of growth on it. Down here I planted a potato vine, and you can see it is just now taking off, trying to grab a hold of this stuff. And this is an air potato. Don't know if you've ever grown this before, but really awesome, super fast growth. And these leaves are going to get huge. I mean, they get massive. But I'll put a picture on the screen of what an air potato and the vine looks like. So I'm going to end up growing it right up this, and to cover basically this back railing area. And our wild lettuce, guys, this is how well the wild lettuce does here. So this is a wild lettuce that started growing in this area, and it took off, and it just kept going, and it just kept going, and it just kept going. And so it's almost as tall as the house now, guys. It's definitely up to the roof right up here of our deck, all the way from the ground. So we're probably looking at, about 12 feet tall right now. And this is a wild lettuce. Every bit of this thing is completely edible. It's definitely a little bit on the bitter side once they get to a larger size like this, but definitely an edible plant. And so I've gone ahead and let these grow. I'm going to go ahead and let it seed. I'm going to let it go ahead and grow around the property as well. So just because they are beneficial, you can eat them. They are a natural pain reliever as well. Work almost better than Tylenol and ibuprofen. So anyway, just thought that'd be interesting to you guys. Right over here, we've got our other loquat. This one's doing a lot better. This one's definitely grown a lot faster than the other one. We did have a little bit of a septic leak in this area, which could be the reason why this one's doing so extremely well. And also why we have this giant grass, panic grass, growing here next to it, which I don't want to seed, but it just wants to seed so bad. I think it's going to end up happening. So we may end up fighting some of this panic grass for a while, but definitely holds the topsoil in place. And since we're on a downhill slope, some of these grasses are really good for stopping erosion. Right here on the ground, we've got our Arapaho blackberries, and this is just the first year, guys, that it's really done much, but we're loaded. I mean, it's got a whole bunch of berries all over it. Can't wait for these to ripen. You can see they're just getting started ripening, but some of these are just huge. I mean, some of these berries are really good sized berries, big as my thumb. But can't wait for those to ripen. One of the benefits of this blackberry vine is that you can reach in here and you can grab it like this, and it doesn't hurt because this is a thornless variety. And so what you guys will notice is that blackberry will only fruit on the previous year's growth. So this cane that you see here that grew out, this is all from this year. So in the springtime, last year was this bush. You can see that last year's growth is now fruiting. This is this year's growth. You can see it's established now, has grown this long cane all the way out here. And this cane is not going to fruit this year. This cane will actually fruit next year. So important to know that on blackberries, because a lot of people come in and they'll go, well, I want my blackberry here, I don't want it growing way over here, and they'll cut this off. Well, that means that you're going to skip a whole year of fruit. You're not going to get fruit next year because you cut off all of your new growth that's going to fruit for the next year. So something important to think about with your blackberries. So here's our newest peach tree, and just planted this one here recently, and this one here is the June Gold, I believe it's called. Yeah, June Gold peach, and this has really, really low chill hour requirement, probably around 400 to 500 chill hour requirement. So it has woke up fine. It definitely had some fruit on it. I went ahead and pulled the fruit just because this is a freshly planted tree. I didn't want to let it do any fruiting. I wanted to concentrate on growth and definitely getting that root system established for now. So right over here, we've got our other peach tree. This is our fourth one. We do have 4 total on the property. This one here is the Sam Houston peach tree, and I love the structure on this thing. It is super bushy, really beautiful growth on it. I believe that this one even has some fruit on it still that I went ahead and yes, it does right there. So that is a June Gold peach, still really young. But hopefully we'll get some fruit off of that this year, and I'll be able to taste this one. Also within our chill hour window, requirement window on this one. So the Sam Houston does really well in this area all the way to Houston, obviously. And this is another good selection for here in Southeast Texas. So right over here, I've got a neighbor gave me, this is supposed to be a dwarf everbearing mulberry, and so this one was probably about 12 to 14 feet high this last season, and the winter took it down and killed it to the ground. And now this season it has grown out and is trying to bush. It's sending it out to the sides, sending them upward, but definitely growing fast. So I know it's got a great root structure. That tells me that each year, if it does die to the ground, it's just going to pop right back each and every year. So not really concerned about it, but haven't got any fruit off of this one yet. Definitely looking forward to trying the fruit on this dwarf everbearing mulberry. Here are some of the casters that we've got growing. I've gone ahead and I've put a line of them. There's one here. See if I can't make you dizzy here. There's one growing up right there. And I've gone ahead and planted them down the line. So there's one, there's two. You can see there's another one, there's another one, there's another one over there. I've got them all the way down the line. And I'll show you the red ones that I've got planted over there as well here in just a moment. So another interesting plant that I put in the ground that I wasn't sure if it would grow, because technically this is definitely out of our growing zone. So this should not be here. This is kind of like the quaking aspen. This is the fragrant lilac. And so the growing zone on this, I think, is up to like 7. And we're a 9A. But, you know, some of them will grow in their areas that they're not meant to grow. And we've definitely got some little sprouts growing, new leaves on it. It's trying to come out on the base down there. But this thing, it's growing slow. I will say that. This was planted the first year, so this has been in the ground probably about a year. And this is all we've got so far, but you can see it's a dark, beautiful green. It's doing really, really well. And I'm hoping that we will get this one to bloom. When I was a child, we lived up in the panhandle of Texas. We had a beautiful fragrant lilac growing in the backyard, and it was so large that I had built a fort as a kid underneath it. And so all year long inside of my fort, I would smell this beautiful fragrant lilac smell. And so it definitely snaps me back to my childhood. And so that was why I wanted to try to grow it. If I can get it growing here, awesome. It'll be beautiful. If I can't, well, you know, we'll try something else in this spot, but really hoping that I can get this one to succeed all the way to bloom. So over here we've got our blueberries. You can see I've got one blueberry right here that the grass is just really trying to take over. I've got to come through here and kill off a bunch of this grass to give them a little bit better chance. And then we've got one of our high bush blueberries right here. And this one is just loaded with fruit right now. You can see they're just now starting to ripen. And definitely has a lot of fruit on it. And so looking forward to that. But this is our high bush variety. And planted this one actually last. These other ones were planted from tiny, tiny little bushes. And they're just now getting established and starting to grow new growth and things on them. But I think we've actually got some fruit on this one right over here. So this is another one of them. And we've got some with some sunburn on it, just a little bit. But this one has several berries on it. And this one I believe is called powder blue. Powder blue blueberry. But we've got 4 different blueberry bushes here, and all of them are doing really well. Just 3 of them are barely establishing, and I definitely need to get rid of this grass, guys. The grass does not help your plants get established at all. Definitely takes away a lot of the nutrients. But I'll be taking out all of this grass, no matter how much work it's going to take. I will get rid of it. I cannot stand grass of the Bermuda variety. Or anything that trails like that. So I will be getting rid of all of this. Then over here, and I thought I was going to lose it, we've got our lemon cypress. And this one, you can just cut off a little piece of that and you just rub it in your fingers. Oh, super lemony fragrance to it. And I thought we were going to lose this one, but all of this new growth has popped off. A bunch of the lower growth died. But it is definitely putting on fresh growth this year. And so we planted a lemon cypress just because of the fragrance. I mean, the fragrance of these things is just amazing. And love that tree, love the bright yellow of it. So here's another one of the red casters that I planted, and you can see that red hue that comes up on the leaves on these ones. And I believe they're called a New Zealand red. But planted one there, a red one, and then right next to that, we've got our Steady As She Goes gardenia, and really struggled through the winter. It started turning a bunch of funky colors, but since spring has arrived, we've got a whole bunch of really, really nice colored growth on it now. So that one started from about a 2-inch tall plant, so it's definitely put on some growth. But up here, we've got Another castor. These are the giant Zanzibar castors growing. Here's another one of those seedling crepe myrtles that I showed you in the video of transplanting those, and love the purple, or not the purple, the red color that's coming out on the tips of these. But we've got a crepe myrtle planted there. We've got one of our black diamond right here growing. Another one of these wild lettuce, and this one's right at 6 foot tall. And then another one of our crepe myrtles, and another crepe myrtle growing in the middle of all of these little flowers all over the place. They're really, really pretty. And then behind us is the first bald cypress that we ever planted on the property, and it has probably quadrupled in size. But beautiful, beautiful trees. They've got needles on them, but they're so soft. They're just a soft needle. And bald cypress is good for preventing erosion. Definitely good for erosion control. And so I've planted it here on the back side of the shop just to keep this area, since it's such a downhill right here, from washing away. I've got another hole over here. I'm going to put another bald cypress in there to hold that area. You guys can see our chicken run and all the chickens doing their thing, all the little chicks running around. Another one of those wild lettuce growing up. I really like them. They look really neat. And then I've got right over here down the fence line is another bald cypress that we've planted. So we've got another bald cypress that I put in this hole to hold this area. And basically I'm putting them along this fence line because if you look up here at the orchard, you can see that that's uphill quite a ways. And so the previous owner had a driveway that came down through here and went right out this back area onto the road all downhill. Well, I took a whole bunch of logs. So I took logs and I just covered this whole area and filled it all in, and to prevent that from washing out and running away on us. And so now all of this vegetation has started to grow in this area. Got another one of the mimosas growing up right there. And just to hold this area, just so it doesn't wash away. And so now I'm coming in on this side of the fence line just to prevent all of our topsoil from washing away down into the road when it rains really heavy. Because I mean, it turns into almost a river down through here. And even though I did a whole bunch of terracing, so this whole area, you can't see it with the grass, but it's terraced all the way across here. And I think I showed in some previous videos of the terracing that I've done, but all this area was terraced across here to try to hold some of that topsoil and hold that water throughout the season. So hopefully we'll prevent a lot of that runoff, but I am putting in some more bald cypress right here. There's another hole. I'm going to put another one in right here, and I've planted another bald cypress right over here. Let me show you guys. So here's another bald cypress that I've put in just to hold this area. The roots go really, really wide. They definitely come up to the surface and they kind of hold the area really, really well. But this is our dewberry patch. This all came. So all of this stuff that's right here that grows all the way up into there all came from one little dewberry. I had gotten rid of all the dewberry in this area when we first moved in because I didn't know how good they were or the benefits of them, and that we could use them for pies and cobblers and all sorts of stuff. But I kept one because I thought it was pretty. So it was a tiny little bush that was right here next to this dead tree log that's underneath this, the stump. And that thing just took off and has basically covered this entire area again and has come all the way down here and is trying to fill in the whole bottom area as well. So, but this last season we had so many dewberries. We had some of them, guys, that were as big as my thumb. I mean, they're just massive dewberries and absolutely delicious. If you let them get really, really ripe and they're in the full sun, they get really sweet. So I'm definitely going to keep the dewberry. You can see I've got a whole bunch of dewberry that's growing in here across the fence, and across the other side of the fence is all of the goldenrod and all of those pollinator friendly type flowers that are growing with all the dewberry. But that brings us to our banana patch, guys. You guys have seen this several times. Last year, we had bananas that grew up to about 15 feet high, and the winter definitely took them out. So the winter time took out the bananas. We dropped down to 13 degrees. Bananas cannot handle 13 degrees. There is no way. And so they died all the way to the ground, and this is what's come back so far this season from spring. We've got one that grew up right here. You can see we've got another that's coming up out of the ground right here. We've got another pup that's coming up out of the ground right there. Let's see, we've got, this was the largest one. This one was like 15, 16 feet tall. And you can see the what's remaining of it left there on the ground that didn't make it. And then now all of these pups have sprouted up around it. And so now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 that I can see here. 4 different bananas that are growing up off of the base of that one. So looking forward to seeing how tall these are going to get this year. Hopefully, if we don't have a really, really harsh winter this next season, we might actually get some bananas off of them. So looking forward to that. Got another stand of them over here. Looks like we've got 3 of them that are coming up in this area. And then we've got our first banana that we planted, which is a dwarf variety that is back here. That dwarf variety, when we planted it, actually had an elephant ear attached to the base of it, a really tiny elephant ear. And the following season, it ended up spreading. And so now we have elephant ear all over the place. And it has come all the way out to here. And is just growing all over the place. So this should be a really pretty area at some point. We'll have all of our bananas, elephant ear, bananas, and then that fence right there is covered in honeysuckle, and this fence right here is covered in honeysuckle, and just really pretty, really, really fragrant, all of the blooms that are on them. So really, really like honeysuckle. So we've gone ahead and let it grow along the fence line. But you can see we've got lots of dewberry back here too. And growing along the fence, trying to grab a hold of the honeysuckle. But and that's the same thing as blackberry. All of your new growth won't fruit. It's going to be next year's growth, or the previous year's growth that will actually fruit, excuse me. But anyway, guys, that's it. I think we have completed our tour. I've covered the whole property. This video's almost going on, I don't know, hour and a half, maybe over that. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys remember, the previous video that we've had. Hopefully you enjoyed the update. You can see we got wildflowers going, different things like that. But the gardens are becoming beautiful. I mean, they're definitely growing. I will continue adding this next season. I'm going to go ahead and add a whole bunch of different stuff. We've got a whole bunch of different plants to add. Before I let you guys go, let me go ahead and get up here on the porch, and I'm going to update you guys on our pepper growing and all of our other stuff that we've got going up here, and then I'll let you go. So I'm up here on the porch, and this is where we've got all of our other stuff happening, guys. And here's our lime tree that I've got growing. We've got some different an aloe. We've got our other gardenia growing. Basically, it's like a nursery up here. But I've got a whole bunch of our different desert willows, seedlings, and they're definitely getting a lot of growth on them. Some more cherry laurels that I transplanted, a prickly pear that's got no pricklies, definitely a benefit. But this is what we've got going, guys, up here. And so we finally got our shade cloth, 30% shade fabric put up in here. But we've got seedlings. We've got a whole bunch of cold hardy figs that I've started growing in pots. Some Violet de Bordeaux, Olympian, Chicago hardy, things like that. We've got Brugmansia. That's our angel trumpet. Can't wait to plant that. It'll have to stay in a pot because it gets too cold here for it. But we've got some pepper plants going. You can see we've got banana peppers hanging. Tomato plants, pepper plants, basil plants, whole bunch of stuff growing there. But here's our tomato vine. We've got a whole bunch of tomatoes, cherry tomatoes started on that vine. And you can see a whole bunch of them here. But here's our 2 bald cypress that we're going to be putting in. But if you live in this area, guys, if you live in the Comasnil area and you want tomato plants, I've got cherry tomatoes, we've got yellow pears, we've got honeycomb yellows, we've got regular cherry. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different types. You can see basil we've got coming up out of there. We've got a whole bunch of different pepper plants that are definitely available for you guys for your gardens if you're looking for them. But here is our pepper deck, and we've definitely got some peppers going. I'm just going to show you guys a few of them. We've got some cayenne going here, long slim cayenne peppers growing. Looks like we've got some Cajun bell. We've got a Cajun bell that's doing really well. We've got a whole bunch of these no heat jalapenos. This thing's full. There are, let me see if I can do this without making you guys dizzy. We've got some hot jalapeno, a whole bunch of serranos. I mean, this thing is just, it's loaded. There's a whole bunch of serrano peppers in there. We've even got some habaneros growing. So we've got a whole bunch of habaneros started on this plant. So definitely a bunch of different peppers going too. But guys, I think I've held on to you long enough. If you waited through the video this long and made it all the way through, then you are definitely true fans of the Markham Gardens, and I appreciate you guys watching. I just wanted to give you guys an update. This basically sets as a marker each season for, you know, how much the garden has grown, you know, what kind of progress we've made. And I'm telling you, year after year, you're going to be surprised, because my method of gardening is to plant like a jungle, but most of the jungle either smells good, looks beautiful, or you can eat it. And so those are my goals. That's what I want to do on this whole entire property. And I just appreciate you staying with me through this whole video. If you have not subscribed to the channel, guys, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you guys can see all of the future updates, and you can see kind of the projects and the stuff that we do here. If you know somebody that it would be interested in this, or has a garden themselves and loves to plant things, somebody that's in kind of a similar climate as this, that would be interested in some of the plants that we plant, if you'll share this video, guys, share it and get the word out there with other people. Don't be stingy with your videos. And hopefully you guys liked the video. If you did, guys, if you give me a thumbs up, if you go ahead and like this video, definitely helps us out. But give us a comment down there in the bottom if there's something that you'd like to see us plant on the property. If there's something that you've seen that you're like, you know what, you could really do better by doing it this way, guys, put that in the comments. I love to hear y'all's recommendations. I love to read y'all's comments. I will respond on all of your comments, no matter how nasty they may get. And anyway, I just appreciate you guys watching the channel. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for following me around the gardens today to get the update for this season. And hope you guys do well. Hopefully your gardens prosper as well. So anyway, love you guys. See you in the next one. Shalom under the dome.